Since My Little Pony: A New Generation came out, we've had a lot of concept art and storyboards from earlier stages of the movie. I want to analyze the previous versions of the G5 movie to highlight what's improved in the final version and what we might have lost. I'm actually going to focus on two iterations of the movie: the concepts, leaked all the way back in 2017, and the more recent version we've seen some storyboard animatics from. But first, the 2017 leaks. There were a series of emails and images that were leaked in 2017 that described the then current plans for the 5th generation of the My Little Pony franchise. If you're not sure where I'm getting all this from, I promise it's legit. I linked a video by Shunks in the description that summarizes the 2017 leaks if you want to know more. If you haven't seen these, they're wild. I thought maybe they were just fake rumors, but they turned out to be totally legit. Originally, G5 was going to be set in a different universe that wasn't connected to the Equestria of G4, but it was going to feature the main 6, as in Twilight Sparkle, Rainbow Dash, Fluttershy, Pinkie Pie, Applejack, and Rarity. The catch is that they were rather redesigned. Twilight was an Earth Pony, Pinkie was a Pegasus, and Fluttershy was a unicorn. Rather controversially, the text of the emails suggested that the crew were totally reconsidering Applejack's character, turning her into a city girl with a completely different personality. What I find ironic about these long, outdated concepts is not what is different, but rather what stayed the same in the final version of the G5 movie. Originally, they planned to use a new universe, but keep the same characters, but in the end they decided to use the same universe, but introduce new characters. Ultimately, it was always part of the plan to keep something from G4. I understand why. G4 was massively successful. If Disney's ever-growing empire has taught its competitors anything, it's that audiences like continuity. They're not as willing to watch a total reboot or, heavens forbid, something entirely new as they are to watch something familiar. G5 was always going to be connected to G4 to make more money. But I'm glad they went down the route of keeping the world to enrich and enhance the world building of G5 rather than beating down characters that already had 9 seasons of growth. But ultimately, there was one other thing that stayed the same. To an extent, they used redesigned versions of the main 6. Not really, but there are undeniable similarities between the main 5 of G5 and the main 6 of G4. Most notably, Applejack did not survive in either version of G5. She was completely reworked in the 2017 version, and in the final version, she's just not there. Watch this. Sunny is Twilight, Pip is Rarity, Zip is Rainbow, Izzy is Pinkie, Hitch is Fluttershy, and Applejack just isn't there. Some folks have suggested that Hitch has elements of both Fluttershy and Applejack, but I don't see it. Hitch's connection to Fluttershy runs deeper than his animal magnetism. The defining trait of Hitch's character, the trait that drives his character arc in the movie, is his kindness. But what traits of Applejack's does he have? I can't think of any. This brings up the question, why was Applejack, or an Applejack-influenced character, not included in G5? Well, the writers of G4 didn't really know what to do with Applejack sometimes. Her character was always a little inconsistent, and she kind of got dumbed down in later seasons. With the way she was written, I get the vibe that the writers were kind of stuck with a character that they didn't really understand or want, but there was no practical way to just axe her from the show. But whatever the reason, I'm glad they went with 5 new-ish characters instead of reviving the main 6. Anyhoozle, at some point this concept got scrapped. Apparently they had some pretty detailed 3D renders of these characters, but I can only imagine these were just concepts. They couldn't have gotten so far along that they were actually animating the whole movie only to scrap it all and rewrite everything from scratch, I think. Anyway, we have more content, 3 animatics, and a whole lot of concept art from a newer iteration of the movie that was actually more similar to the final product. The characters were the same ponies we know from the actual movie, although a few of them were slightly different. Pip may have been less sympathetic. Izzy was at one point a nerd with bullies, although I'm not sure how long that lasted. The bigger difference is in the plot and world building. Ponies actually still had magic, but each city had this magic stone that powered their magic. The magic in these stones was failing, probably as a result of the failing friendships between the 3 pony tribes, which still hated each other, just like in the final product. I'll be looking at these three animatics in the order that they would have appeared in the movie, not the order that they were released or leaked. So then the first one is the one that recently came out, The End Is Nay. I'd recommend you go watch it and the other animatics before continuing in my analysis. I've included links to them in the description. One thing that jumps out at me about this earlier movie concept is that the Earth Ponies clearly had magic of some kind. This adds more weight to my theory that Earth Ponies will be getting magic sometime in the upcoming series. My bits are on that being the focus of the spring special, but we'll see. Another thing we get here is that Argyle seems decidedly more crazy.
They'll come around. I see it in my dreams.
I would have liked this more. In the final product, Argyle was just too perfect. He was waving those death flags hard. I would have preferred an Argyle that was actually a little kooky, even if he was ultimately right, so that he's not just this symbol of an ideal. He could have had more personality. I also noticed that Hitch is meaner. I am really glad they changed Hitch to what he is now. He strides a fine line in the first half of the actual movie. He disagrees with Sunny, he believes what the history teacher taught, and he thinks that Pony Unity stuff is just a story, but he still respects Sunny. He's a nice dude and a good friend. He snaps at her after the Canterlogic event, but Sunny betrayed his trust and lied to him. I blame this on her. It's better to have Hitch as a character who's wrong, but still respectful and kind, rather than this version of Hitch who's just kind of a follower and sprouts bully gang. Hitch is best pony, but apparently it took some time for the writers to get him right. In addition to Hitch, I'd say overall this animatic gives a vibe of the Earth Ponies are mean. Hitch, Sprout, these adults, they're all just mean. I like that they toned this back in the final version, because, the people that support this kind of populist in the human world are just normal people that get blinded by propaganda and fear. They're not naturally mean and disposed to evil all the time, and in the final version, nor are the ponies of Maritime Bay. Most of them are just normal ponies who get caught up in the fear. One other thing about this animatic, it's really cliche. This conflict of the bully and the weird family, and she has to kind of stand up for herself, and Hitch is like this little follower in the in-group. Yeah, go away. That's so cliche. Just leave. The animatic ends with a transition into a song. I like the way they get all meta talking about the song.
I didn't realize dads could sing those types of songs.
It's always funny when they address the fact that they're just randomly breaking out into song.
Ponies just bursting into song in random places at the drop of a hat? Who does that? Oh, Manhattan.
This animatic seems to transition directly into the next one, which was leaked way back in January 2021. This one has no sound, so we kind of have to infer what's going on. But it looks like Argyle is singing a song to Sunny about the main six. Partway through the song, Sunny seems to join in. One thing I pick up from this animatic and the other one is that maybe Argyle had a little more screen time in the earlier version. In the final product, he's dead 6.5 minutes into the movie. I actually prefer it that way. I was pretty upset about Argyle dying. It's such a Disney thing to do. I saw it coming before the trailer even came out. But I think it's pretty likely that he's dead in this earlier iteration too. So I'd like to just get it over with. Get the guy dead so we can get past the Disneyfication and get on to the real story. It was relatively quick and painless in the final version. Although every time they bring Argyle up again in the movie, it hurts. Because it reminds me that they use the most overused trope there is. I don't want the dude to have a song because I hate his role in the movie. This song was probably the main six's cameo in the older version of the movie, rather than the scene of Sunny playing with her main six toys. Once again, I think I prefer what we got in the final product. This scene is funny, fun, and memorable. I have come back to watch it semi-regularly, and the actual main six actors got to voice their parts. Maybe the song would have been good, but I'm happy with what we have. So overall, I've been leaning towards favoring the new movie over the old one. This bullying scene is really cliche. Hitch is much improved in the new version, and the Earth ponies are nicer in the new version, and the main six's cameo is just perfect. I will say I like slightly crazy Argyle a little more, but I just wanted the guy to either stay alive or not really be mentioned, which doesn't seem to be the case in either iteration. He had to get Disneyed. But the last animatic chronologically shifts the balance a little in favor of the older iteration of the movie. This animatic, the Storm Heist, has the main five minus Pip working together to acquire the Pegasus Stone. It's a parallel to the glowing up scene in the final product. As I was watching this and looking at some of the concept art, I realized I kind of wanted this movie because it feels more magical than the final product. In the actual G5 movie, magic is gone. We don't really encounter a lot of magical creatures, and the magical artifacts we do see in the movie are more confusing than anything else. They do a great job of giving a tantalizing look into the magic world of Equestria that was lost, replaced by this gritty, modernized world, but honestly, a part of me wishes they had just kept magic throughout the movie. What is My Little Pony without flying horses, rainbow lasers, and fantastical monsters? This is how it's always been. This is what set G1 apart from other girls' franchises. I like this older concept of the movie, where Pegasi can fly and there's a giant weather machine. Speaking of Pegasi that can fly, hoo boy, can they fly in this animatic? I know it's just a storyboard, but the way they're drawn, their flight seems much more realistic than it did in G4. I'm a sucker for realism. I would have drawn Pegasi with bigger wings and flight patterns that obey the laws of physics, like Asinonyx Jubatus did in Envelope. Now, we don't know that Pegasi won't be this way in G5. They do have bigger wings this time around, and we haven't really seen them fly yet. I assume they won't always have this magical aurora going on, so I wouldn't find it unreasonable to believe that their flight here doesn't look like it will throughout the series. But anyway, I really hope someone on the team for the series knows what Bernoulli's principle is, because no pony paid it any heed in G4. There's another noticeable difference in the way this storyboard is drawn compared with how the movie ended up being animated. Ponies use their mouths to carry things. I've already complained about the hooves in the G5 movie. It still bothers me. I really hope they lay off the magnet hooves in the series. It does not look good in 3D. It's just unnatural. Using their mouths makes more sense. It doesn't look as weird. It's more accurate to horses, which have very dexterous lips, and it has some serious comedic potential.
We've got magic powers too, like walking around and picking stuff up with our teeth. That's sarcasm, by the way.
It's funny because it's true.
The fact that they use their mouths in this animatic actually explains something in the movie that had me really confused. In the early speculation stages before the trailer, I thought G5 was going to step up the game in terms of realistic hooves. Why? Because of the way items are designed in the world. Things like this lamp, this piano, these trumpets, and this phone are designed specifically to be used by hooves. But why does the phone need a slot for a hoof when apparently hooves can just do this and this? Well, I think we have our answer. By the time of this animatic, most of the visual designs for the movie were already in place. The characters look about the same, the guards have similar armor. The world was designed to be hoof-friendly, because that's how they were going to do it originally. But then sometime in the animation stage, the creators decided against realistic hooves. Instead of stepping up the game towards realistic hooves, G5 went way further towards, hooves have unexplained invisible fingers. This and this were much easier to believe than this, but this is still much, much easier for my brain to process than this. Really, I can't even look at this. Since the world is already designed to be hoof-friendly, I really, really hope they stop doing this in the series. So yes, the Storm Heist shows off some positive aspects to the G5 movie that might have been. But it has some problems. It definitely seems more action-focused. I mean, we have a chase scene, we have ponies crashing and bonking around. Izzy may have killed a guy, And this guy is probably dead too. I'm glad that in the final product they chose not to emphasize the action so much. It is there, but it's really not central to the movie. If you compare the finished glowing up scene to this animatic, there's a lot of running around and shenanigans, but not really action. And My Little Pony was never about the action. When they did focus too much on the action, we got this absurdity. The other thing here is Pip. She's not part of the group yet, even though Hitch is already on board. In fact, she's rather hostile and egotistical. I'm not sure how I feel about this. Pip did not work in the final version of the G5 movie. I talked for some length about why this is in my review of the movie. To summarize, she didn't get to do anything important in the movie, and she basically had a character arc off screen. The Pip in this animatic is certainly different, but just off one scene, I don't know if she had a proper character arc or an important contribution to the team. Given how unsympathetic she starts here, I feel like they must have planned out a character arc for her. In fact, they must have planned out a character arc for Pip even in the final version, right? There must be some deleted scene where Pip and Zip actually talked things out and Pip agreed to help the others try to restore friendship and magic. I don't know why they chose to cut it, but someone must have thought, wait, what's Pip's motivation in helping the group? This hostile Pip isn't necessarily better or worse than the Pip we know, because the problem isn't where she started, it's that her character arc never went anywhere. That is all three animatics. So then, what do I think of this scrapped iteration of the movie? Overall, I'm glad we got what we got. Hitch is so much more likable in the final version. There's not this cliche bullying scene. There seems to be less emphasis on Argyle and action sequences, and the ponies aren't quite as mean. But there are some valuable things that were lost when they scrapped this older version. There was more magic, the hooves weren't inexplicably magnetic, and Pegasi may have flown more realistically, although the jury is still out on how Pegasi will be flying normally in G5. As a side note, this older version of the movie is actually a little more like what I was expecting early on. I mean, we had pretty good indication that the hooves were going to be more realistic this time, and then in the end they weren't. I didn't think that they meant magic was gone in the synopsis. I thought they meant friendship magic was gone. And I was legitimately afraid that Hitch was going to be a jerk, like he was here. Overall, I'm glad they had the vision to change the script and do things in a less expected way. The G5 movie we got in September was really clever, and this older one seems a little more blunt. I may have some new respect for the G5 movie now that I've seen other ways it could have gone. Despite some problems, overall they did a great job. But I am tantalized by the prospect of what could have been. At some point, some artist drew a pony flying around with a magic stone in her mouth, and ultimately they decided to scrap that. But hey, you can't have everything, right?